I'd like to introduce our final presenter for the session, Jason Stabinskas, Managing Director, LCL Resources Limited.
Good morning. It was almost a year to the day that, in fact it was October 1st, so a year and 3 days, that the chairman of LCL, Ross Ashton, and myself were standing in the very, very creek in southern PNG looking at a float sample. It was about, maybe a bit bigger, maybe that big, spherical shaped boulder. Staring at this boulder, this is a specimen from that. This grades 23.3% nickel and 10 grams per tonne gold. And we're thinking, well, that's pretty spectacular grade. And it wasn't the only sample that day that the local geologist showed us. We saw others north of 10% nickel. There was one to the south, downstream from us, that was grading 45.8% nickel. Now, the reason why Ross and I were there is we were conducting due diligence ahead of an acquisition of a portfolio of targets in PNG. Needless to say, that was a successful transaction, and we announced that to the market in November of last year, and that has been the focus of our exploration activity since. So the portfolio consists of mostly copper, gold and gold targets. You can see there in the red polygons and the orange labelling. That supplements a gold story we have in Colombia, which is a 2.6 million ounce resource, and hopefully I'll have time to talk about that. But the other metal in this portfolio is the nickel story in the south, the LCL nickel project area, which is a combination of licences and applications. And obviously this presentation focuses on that, given the theme of the conference. So this is the 3,400 square kilometre footprint that we have in the area, and just pointing out a few things of note. You can see the Kaveri Fault there. To the south of the Kaveri Fault is the Australian plate, and on the north is the Solomon plate, and the area that we hold is mainly Papuan ultramafic belt, ultramafic lithologies, and the abduction zone associated with the suture zones defined by the Kaveri Fault. Now, near the fault, proximal to the fault, are three targets that I want to talk about in a bit of depth. Very, very Eoa and Dariri. But as you move further north, there's another target called Wede. This is arguably the largest, highest grade, most coherent nickel anomaly in the entire country. And that includes Ramu, a producing asset in PNG, and also Wauwau Gap, you can see on this map as well, which is a nickel laterite project in feasibility. And there are a great number of other targets in the area. Some of them are nameless at this point. Sophia is another one in the north that has some interest as well. So I'm going to go into those three projects now, very, very Eoa and Dariri. You probably couldn't see from there, but this sample is the one in the bottom right-hand corner there, 23% nickel. The main minerals there is hazelwoodite and minor millerite. The sample above that, again, hazelwoodite and minor millerite. The green you can see there is garnierite, which is a nickel silicate. So in July of this year, we announced that we had worked upstream from these nickel float in the very, very creek and confirmed the origin of all this spectacularly high-grade nickel was a shear zone, and the nickel was occurring as boudins inside this boudinage shear zone. In fact, some of the samples you'll see on our table have that classic sort of boudinage shape to them. What you're seeing there underneath the text is two of those boudins in situ to confirm that this was actually the outcropping source of the mineralisation, not float. So let's go into detail of that shear zone. So what it is, it's a 200 metre wide corridor of shears, and you can see we have boudins sitting in that corridor, and you can see some of the grades there around the image: 12% nickel and 6 grams per tonne gold. Remember, this is all on surface. 17.9% nickel and 6 grams per tonne gold, 10% nickel, 1.27 grams per tonne. Down the bottom there, 19.8% nickel and 8.7 grams per tonne gold. So absolutely spectacular results. But of course, they're occurring as boudins, so it's misleading to talk about those without also talking about the greater context of what the mineralisation, what the sort of the country rock is like. So whilst they're spectacular results and gets everyone very excited, what's more meaningful are those trench results you can see in that image as well, because that considers the material around the boudins, not just the boudins. And we're getting 7.8 metres at 3.17% nickel and 1.32 grams per tonne gold, 7 metres at 4.2 and 1.45 grams per tonne gold, 10 metres at 2.6 and 0.77 grams per tonne gold. So even if we take these representative trenching samples, we're still generating high-grade nickel sulphide at surface. So very excited by that. Very early stage, of course. As I said, we announced this in July, so we're learning as we're going. The blue line that runs top to bottom, that is the Very, Very Creek. We are encouraged by those two samples you can see to the right of that, 10% nickel and 18.5% nickel, because they're upstream. So that suggests another source further upstream from this cluster where we've been investigating thus far. So next steps here is to try and get an appreciation of what's happening across that 200-metre corridor, and also try to get an appreciation of strike length at Very, Very. Now, the next one along in that list of three is Iowa. Now, everything I'm talking about is quite fresh. This was actually announced 6 hours ago, so very, very recent. Iowa is another shear zone. The map on the left there, you can see a little inset. That's where there's been some drilling and some trenching, but otherwise the shear is pretty much unexplored. That little zone, sort of 50 metres zone of this several kilometre long shear, has delivered elevated nickel. The trenching, which is the image on the right I'm talking about now, you can see the pinks and the reds, that's the high-grade nickel, and that's following the orientation of the shear zone. And you can see there some of those trench results grading 12% nickel. Drill hole 4 skimmed through that shear and recorded 5 metres at 1.48% nickel from 15 metres. Now, what's also interesting about Iowa, we're very excited by this target, is if we go upstream, so on this map going further north, going up, there are other samples there grading 10%, 12%, 15% nickel. That's above the area of the drilling. Now, rocks can't roll uphill, so that is another source of nickel coming from up there somewhere. That's very compelling. Then you can see a ridge line at the top of the ridge, and then as you go down the other side, you see again elevated nickel on the other side. Only a few samples pointed out here, but that area of Eucalypt Ridge, I think, will see significant attention from us in 2024. And the last in the three is Deriri. Again, you can see in the trench work that the reds and the pinks, which is the high-grade nickel, follows an orientation of a shear, and you can see some drill results there. Surprisingly uniform drill results. Essentially all of them are, well, most of them are 12 metres at 1%, so 12.2 at 1, 11.6 at the oval 1, and so on, 12.1 at 0.92, and 3.6 metres at 1.47 and 13.5 metres at 1.5% nickel. So again, another target in this shear-hosted hydrothermal system. Now, while I've got you on this map, on the right-hand side, I'll return to the Kaveri Fault. I'm going to take you now further northwest on the Kaveri Fault, leaving the Papuan ultramafic lithologies and into copper-gold porphyry target type lithologies that PNG is famous for. We have one target here, Ube. So you can see in the south there on the left-hand map, Very, Very. Now this is copper anomalism, which is why it doesn't light up. But as you go to the northwest, you see Ube. Now we haven't drilled the Ube porphyry target itself, but it's 4 kilometre by 4 kilometre rock chip anomaly on surface, occasionally grading more than 2% copper and 2 gram per tonne gold. So whilst it's never been drilled, that's the sort of size anomaly you would like to see if you were chasing a tier 1 copper gold discovery. So very excited by that. There are some samples there. There's some epithermal veins in the area that are of interest to us as well. And we have a sample at our booth that grades 120 grams per tonne gold, if you'd like to go have a look at that. And then further north along that copper trend, there are other targets of interest as well. Emu is another porphyry target we have. This is up in Elephant Country near Porgera, Freda River and Octeti. This has been drilled and consistently getting sort of between 200 and 300 metres starting near surface, grading about 0.5 copper equivalent. The best drill result is 305 metres at 0.65 copper equivalent starting on surface. Now, recently we announced a development here which is quite exciting. We went about 300 metres away from the area of drilling and saw outcropping porphyry stockwork. Not only is that exciting in its own right, but the grade of that material is significantly higher than the material that's been drilled. So not only is there the potential to significantly increase the footprint here, but also boost the grade. And finally, Kusi. Kusi has been a significant focus for us over the last 9 months. We've had a 3,000 metre drilling program at Kusi, which has just recently finished. Kusi sits on an arc normal structure coming off the main arc of PNG, which also hosts Harmony Gold's Hidden Valley mine and Wafigolpu. So we're a little south of those two. It's an arc normal structure, so there's multiple targets along this structure. The one that's been drilled is at Kusi, which is a skarn unit associated with a porphyry intrusive body. The area we've drilled is about 600 metres by 300 metres, and you can see grades there of 45 metres at 3.65 grams per tonne gold, 67 metres at 1.53, 70 metres at 1.86, relatively close to surface. So getting some really encouraging results over this 600 by 300 metre region. We believe the causative source is this porphyry stock, which you can see circled there, but also represented by the maghi in the red stripes. So there's the potential for a halo of mineralisation to occur around that intrusive body. And we've got some samples from here at our booth as well. And then we've taken that model and looked at another target nearby, which is a maghi and coincident with gold anomalism on surface. So that result remains pending. And finally, to our Colombian story, just to close things off. This is a 2.6 million ounce gram per tonne porphyry in the form of tesserito. Well, the bulk of it is in the form of tesserito. Miraflores is actually a breccia pipe mineralisation and exists as a reserve, about 457,000 ounces, grading 3.3. Now, what's exciting about this is it's on surface, so the porphyry actually daylights, which bodes well for potential economics. We have done some pre-level PEA studies on this, some economic assessments and some metallurgical work, and all that has come back very encouraging. And there's also the potential to grow this resource further because we are in the mid-Cauca belt of Colombia, which hosts many multi-million ounce discoveries. So where to from here? So the bulk of the 2023 program has been drilling at Kusi and this initial groundwork at the nickel project, mainly Very. Going on from here, now that the Kusi drilling program is complete, it's all hands on deck pursuing this Very Ewa and Dariri nickel sulfide stories. Also doing some regional work on the nickel project, assessing the optimal techniques for exploring the broader target area, geophysics and similar. And hopefully 2024 will see field campaigns at Ono, the broader Kusi project, Emu and Ube. But the bulk of the story, as I said, is on this nickel target. With the sort of grades we're getting, the nickel tenor we're seeing in the area, and the potential for this thing to bulk up at Very is very compelling and certainly deserving of a lot of our attention. And thank you for your attention.